What's good, YouTube? We're back. We got Ryan on the camera, AB representing Goodmuscle. We're in the gym. We out here. Today's leg day. It's the best day, the worst day, the hardest day, the easiest. No, not the easiest day. It's really the hardest day. So to break this down, we're gonna go with the thing for me is I need to work on hamstrings and posterior chain more. So we're gonna prioritize that first. And then we'll go into quads. And then really we'll smash hamstrings, we'll smash quads, and then we'll probably go like a whole leg movement. So hopefully you can learn a few things and I can kind of show you how execution goes, especially on certain movements and like when you're doing it, how to get more out of it. We'll go into a machine and I'll show you how to like actually set up and execute there. But for the most part, just watch and I hopefully learn something. The first thing I'm gonna do before I start loading anything is I'm just gonna work my hips. So I'm gonna do a hip airplane. And this is really just to work internal and external rotation of my hips. So for most people, you're probably not gonna be able to do this without some kind of basis support out here. So whether it's a body bar or a broomstick. So we just get into this position here. I'm keeping my rib cage down. So we don't want to flare this way. We're going to keep the rib cage down. I'm going to externally rotate at my actual hip joint with that ball and socket. I'm going to hang out in my in range. I'm going to drop back down, keeping everything squared because everything happens at the hip. So I'm not just moving my torso. And then from here, we're going to internal. So I'm going to drop into this hip here. And this is where most people are going to feel this big stretch. And this is one of the tight points for me too. So I can really feel that. Hang out in that in range. I'm coming back out, coming back through. I'm going to go in one more time. Flexion. Woo! Extension of this leg. External rotation. Back down. Internal rotation. We'll go to this other side here. The main thing with this is if we lack external rotation, which is this here. So if you think about like my position, when we get into a squat, so if we're getting into a barbell squat, for the most part, we're here, right? So when I get into this one leg, this hip airplane, and I get into this position right here, and when I externally rotate, like that is gonna be the angle of my femur when I get under a barbell and I get in a squat. So if you think about it, if we can't be here and we can't get into this position just with our body, then we probably shouldn't be squatting with a barbell on our back, especially with 200 plus pounds on it. So that's the idea of, we're kind of testing these, we're testing the variability and the capacity to own this position. Because if, we take somebody, or even if I can't do this, because mobility and stability changes, especially if you're traveling or you sit in a car for a while or you have a desk job, like mobility and stability will change. It's dynamic. Or if you have a client that comes in and they can't do this movement, getting them under a barbell is probably going to be the worst choice that you could make for them in the long run. Okay. And for today, that's all I'm gonna do. I feel pretty good. My hips are pretty good. Everything feels really good. So that's all I'm gonna do as far as like activation work. Once I get into this next exercise, it's gonna get my hamstrings, my glutes, my back. So by the time we're done with this movement, like I'll have blood going everywhere. So that's all I'm gonna do for today. All right, guys, so the first exercise we're gonna do is gonna be posterior chain, hamstrings and glutes. We're gonna do a banded RDL. This one's a little tricky. I would definitely put it in the more advanced portion of someone's program if they're advanced. So this band is gonna go at our hip crease. So typically when we have an RDL, you know, we just have the bar in front or the weight in front of the body. We're hinging the hips back, stretching the hamstrings and coming forward. Now we have this band, which is pulling us back. So it's gonna pull these hips back. We're gonna get those hamstrings at the bottom. And then as we hip extend back to the top, we're gonna have to fight the resistance of that band as we rotate the pelvis and extend our hips. So we get hamstrings all the way down. We get glutes hard at the top. Another key for this is what we're doing with the rib cage. So for the most part, a lot of people do RDLs and they extend the rib cage. So we get this rib cage in this extended position. So we end up about here like this, picking stuff up, coming down. You're still gonna stretch the hamstring. Obviously, you'll still feel it, but you're gonna get a lot of tension in that low back, which as you start to progress and the load goes higher, like the first thing that's gonna give out is gonna be your low back because you're not gonna be able to maintain this position as you start to climb up. Therefore, we're gonna lose output and we're gonna lose like the whole building lean tissue as you progress and build the load up. So make sure that rib cage is down, neutral, it's kind of lined up with the pelvis. As we get to the top, allow this pelvis, I don't know if you can see, so allow your pelvis, instead of just coming up and just driving your hips forward like this, actually rotate the pelvis. So as you come up, we're rotating this way. You'll get a lot more out of the glutes if you rotate back like that. So I'm gonna do a warm up real quick and kind of show you guys what this looks like. We got the band around the hip crease. We're gonna pick up. Woo! Oh man, it's gonna be fun. All right, guys. So we just did the banded RDL, which is gonna be a very hip hinge dominant. It's gonna be more of a stretched position of the hamstring. So we got our hamstrings, right, that come down and they connect like our tibia up here. They originate up here. So, you know, they kind of do this, but when we're here and we're hinging this way, we're not flexing the knee. So we're not actually like doing an action. We're just kind of putting the hamstring under load in a stretched position. So it's really good. Not that anything is good or bad, but you can kind of see like how you can prioritize things and how to program certain things. So in a stretched position, we're not going to be the strongest. It's our lower body, so we can go pretty crazy with it. RDL, hip hinge, we can use a lot of load and put the hamstring in a stretched position and train it that way. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to finish the hamstring. I'm going to go into a seated leg curl, which is going to be like this mid-range movement. So we're going to be sitting down. Our pelvis is going to be kind of posteriorly tilted so we can keep the hamstring prioritized. And we're coming this way. So now we're going to be able to work this mid-range to lengthened position of the hamstring and actually flex the knee, bringing this insertion closer to the origin. Now, when we set up for this, there's a few things that you can do to get a lot more out of this machine. So when we set up, we literally want to be like stuck in this machine. So if you don't have this pad smashed into your thighs, like you are giving up 25, 30% output that you could get out of this machine. And the amount of force or tension that you can put through the hamstrings, you're gonna lose 30% immediately if you don't smash this pad into your thigh. So usually if I have a partner, usually I'm by myself, but I'll just smash this down, I'll bring my feet down, and I will literally try and bring this guy as far down as I can. So now there's literally no wiggle room at all from the pad of my leg. So once I start, like if there's like any kind of like, that's just because the machine's kind of crappy, but if there's any kind of like up, like you can kind of move your thigh up a little bit before you start, it's not tight enough. The next thing is the position of the rib cage again. So we're thinking rib cage mechanics again. So you can bear hug to make this a lot easier. I like to go here because I can kind of push into this rod here, but we want to keep our rib cage down. That's going to put our pelvis in a posterior tilt, which is going to allow us to prioritize and use that hamstring to the best of its ability. If we go, a lot of times we start to press this way, we start to arch this low back, and what that's doing is putting our pelvis in this anterior tilt. So we're putting the hamstring in a stretched position while we're trying to pull this down, and we're just losing, you know, that 5 to 10% that we could get. So especially as you start to get more advanced, like that 5 to 10% is going to be like the key factor in whether you're building lean tissue or not. So smash yourself in, bring the rib cage down. We want to keep the tempo the same. So do not just, don't do that. So we want to keep the tempo the same. So we're going down. We're going to squeeze at the bottom. We're going to come back up with that same tempo that we went down. We want to keep the toes up. If we point down, you're going to get a lot of calves as you bring this weight down. Not that you're not going to get the hamstrings, but you might get a nice Charlie horse going on. You can also change the angle of your feet to prioritize whether you want like medial hamstring, lateral hamstring. You can go in to get more of that inside hamstring, and you can angle out, which is why I like this seated machine, because you have a lot of external stability. You're locked in, you got a pad against you, you got a chair, you got all this locked in, so you can angle all this. Your back's not gonna give out. The only thing that should be giving out is that hamstring. All right, guys, so hamstrings are done. We got the RDL, the seated curl, sets. I mean, whatever you can manage. I mean, if you want to go 4 sets of that, reps are probably 6 to 8. But you should be trashed if you follow all the cues. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go into quads. So I'm gonna do a squat. The squat, we're just gonna load up. As far as execution goes, I'm not gonna pull like a power lifter stance, so I'm not gonna go like low bar and like hinge back super far. Just the way my structure is, if I hinge back this far, like I used to do with powerlifting, like my upper thighs and my glutes are gonna get hammered. My quads aren't, not so much. So I'm gonna kind of set with like almost a narrower, is that a word? Narrower stance, okay. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of send these knees forward this way and come back up. So I'm gonna be kind of like, almost like going forward with my weight. And that's gonna allow me to just put all that tension through my quads. We're gonna hammer this through. We're gonna work with our top sets at like 6 to 8 Right after that, so this is gonna be kind of like a mid-range, perhaps a lengthened position if you can like bottom out in the squat, but mostly mid-range. We're gonna pop out over here. We're gonna go into a Bulgarian split. The kettlebell, if you use a dumbbell, we're gonna go with the same side loaded so that we can take all this force and all this load into this leg. Now, if we were to load this opposite hand, it would create more of a dynamic load across the body, as far as like you're gonna have to use like lateral slings and obliques, because if you load this side, like the body's wanting to go here. So we're gonna have to fire this oblique sling. We're gonna have to maintain squared up as we go down. So there's a little bit more to it if you load the opposite hand. So opposite hand is gonna be a little bit more function. You're still gonna load that quad, but it's gonna be a little bit more function instead of like taking the movement as far as you possibly could. So that's why I'm choosing to load this side. So we're gonna be here. And then as far as execution goes, we're going straight down. So we don't wanna come back, because then we're gonna lose that knee flexion angle. So we're going from here, we're going straight down this way. My knee is going over my toes. So we're gonna get a lot of quads. If you have, depending on your structure, if you got a decent tibia, a long femur, you might have to elevate the heel to send that knee forward, because you're gonna run out of mobility with your ankle. But that's really, as far as structure, that's really all you're gonna have to worry about. So we're here, rib cage again, wanna be neutral. If we start to go into this extended position and we try and look up, we're gonna go here. One, we're anterior tilting the pelvis, which is gonna cause our rec fem, which is like a true hip flexor, to kind of not fire as hard, which is this meat guy right here, this top guy, this rec fem. So we wanna bring the rib cage down. It's gonna put the pelvis in a really good position for all the quads, including that rec fem, that hip flexor, to fire really good. So we wanna get good position. We're also gonna avoid smashing our low back in this position. Bring it down, we're here, boom. Other than that, as far as the squat goes, just one more little tip. If you have not built the skill to be under a barbell, then you need to do something where you're gonna be externally stabilized. You could even start with a goblet squat, but if you don't have the skill to be under a barbell, you're not gonna be able to take this movement where it needs to go for output. Sure, you may build some lean tissue off the bat first coming back in, but if the skill isn't there, the first thing that's gonna break down is gonna be your form. So you're gonna get knee valgus, your low back's gonna give out, something's gonna go to shit, and the movement is not gonna get you the results that you're looking for as far as like building the lean tissue, taxing the quads. So make sure your skill for the barbell squat is there before you try and take this shit all the way. All right, quads are toast. We're gonna move into a leg press. Now, my two choices were barbell lunge or leg press. The reason I'm going leg press is I'm tired. My back is tired, especially with the heavy RDL that we did in the beginning. So this is externally stabilized. So all I gotta do is sit against that pad, and I just gotta push the weight. So if we go into something where I have to internally stabilize, like the first thing that's gonna give out is gonna be my back. And so at this point in the workout, the goal is to drive as much blood into the entirety of the leg. So my feet are gonna go just a little high. I got this setting, so I got, somewhat of an aggressive angle, so I'm gonna get glutes a little bit this way. So if I just went all the way at the bottom, I could get a little bit just more like quad dominant. We angle this guy, we pull this guy up. It's gonna give us more of this angle of the hip at the bottom, so we'll get a little bit more stretch in the glute. And we're just gonna go and we're just gonna press this shit out for anywhere from 10 to 20 reps. So yeah, that's it. Let's do it. All right, guys, so we did, I think two or three warm-ups, 2 working sets. We're trying to push blood, so really we're trying to get like a metabolic stimulus going on. So we're not, we already tore everything up. We don't want to just load so much weight on there. We're only getting 6 reps. So 1 set, 8 to 10. The second set we did, I got 10. We took 2 plates off. We did a drop set with, honestly, probably like 5 forced reps with Ryan's help, pushing the sled up. And then I stood up, squeeze, extending that knee, squeezing the quads, hold 10 seconds, give yourself a 10-second count. Don't count fast, don't cheat. Rinse do, okay? You gotta count slow. 10 seconds, and then that's it. I'm toast. I got the lock knee. I'm gonna walk out of here. I have to be careful on the drive home, but that's leg day. Main things, rib cage mechanics. Everything is anywhere from 2 to 4 sets, depending on how much fuel you got in the tank. We stayed around 6 to 8 for everything besides this leg press. Went more reps here. The Bulgarian Split's 10. I didn't go over any reps, so just give you a little bit. But yeah, try it out. Comment below. If you can walk after you did this, you can leave and drive your car perfectly. You did it wrong, so try again. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. We got more stuff coming. We got Ryan on the cams. What up? I'm out. Peace and love, everybody. Visit the website, get some merch, get a program. Holla. Peace and love.